Hi guys, it's Cindy from Turner Style. I'm here doing a TNS book review because it was requested that I do another one of these videos. I know I've talked about how much I love series novels in the past. I just feel like they're great, easy reads. They take you to interesting places, interesting worlds that maybe don't exist here. They're a great escape, and also you get to revisit the characters over and over because they're a series. These are some of the new ones I've been reading, as well as some reviews from recent books in some of my favorite series. So I'm going to start off with culinary mysteries, and my favorite culinary mystery author is Diane Maud Davidson. She writes the Goldie Bear series, which is about a caterer living in the Denver area. She lives in Aspen Meadows, and she solves crimes. She has a boyfriend slash maybe more. If you haven't read the books, I don't want to give it all away, who is a detective. And she also has an abusive ex-husband and a son. And in Dying for Chocolate, which is my favorite of all her books, which is the second book in the series, there's the introduction of the character of Julian, who is my favorite character in the series. And he's this young guy who a real asset to Goldie and helpful in her catering business and in her mystery solving. So flash forward ahead, there's many books in her series, but her most recent one is called Crunch Time, which I have here in my Kobo e-reader, which I love, by the way. The last couple books in her series I haven't really enjoyed as much as her older books, just because I found them a little bit more predictable, and also she was using these really extreme devices to make the books interesting. Like in one book, everyone had food poisoning, and they were all like vomiting everywhere while she was trying to stop the killer. It was just really gross. I was really happy to read this book, and one, not knowing pretty quickly who the villain was. I felt like Goldie was back to her old ways, and the writing was more in the style of her original books. So if you gave up on the series, definitely check out Crunch Time. It's out on paperback now. You might really enjoy it. And basically what it's about an old friend of hers who gets murdered, and there's basically a fire, and she has to figure out if it's an arson or if it's an accident and that sort of thing. So really, really good one. Another culinary mystery author that I read a lot is Joanne Fluke, and this is her latest book, Red Velvet Cupcake Murder. And this one in Cinnamon Roll Murder, which I think was the one before this, I talked about that one in my last TNS book review. So basically the reason why I've stopped really liking these books is because they've become very repetitive. They're just different people being murdered, different villains, but the same formula happening over and over. Even like what the secondary characters do is the same. The way she talks about her cat is the same. The main character is Hannah. She's in her early 30s. In the beginning of the series, she's in her late 20s. And she has two boyfriends who she basically like barely kisses because she doesn't want to move forward with them unless she can be exclusive. No one at her age dating two guys for so long would be in this position. It's just so unrealistic. I do understand if Joanne Fluke doesn't want to write about that kind of stuff, but then don't make her that young. Don't make her into a relationship. It's just old-fashioned and not fresh, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks so. If you go on the Goodreads account for this book, you'll see people just like hating on it. So I don't recommend this. I don't even know what this is about because I just blocked it out of my memory. But if you do like culinary mysteries, do check out the first few of her books, because the small town setting, it's very much like Gilmore Girls, Stars Hollow vibe. And it was charming for the first few books before it got kind of repetitive. So I do still like Joanne Fluke, I just don't like her books anymore. Sorry. Yeah. A new culinary book series that I've been loving is Coffee House Mystery Series, and it is written by Cleo Coyle. This is Rose Mortem. Her first book is called On What Grounds, and I have all the books in her series because I really loved it. I started reading it at the beginning of the year, and I read all of them. It takes place in West Village in New York City at a coffee house called the Village Blend that's been around for decades, and it's owned by the main character in this series. Her name is Claire Causey, her ex-mother-in-law, and she runs the coffee house. She's just come back from living in suburbia. Her daughter is just starting college. She has to deal with her ex-husband, who is the coffee buyer and kind of a jet-setter, bad boy, as well as all the fun people that come to her shop, the tourists, the locals, the artists, the students. So there's lots of great characters that are involved in the mysteries, as well as there's love interest for her, especially a certain detective that comes along. It's really fresh. It reminds me a lot of the Goldie series, but a little bit more urban of a feel. And the only thing I don't like about this series, that it is a coffee-based mystery. So there's a lot of coffee recipes. They talk a lot about the coffee culture and buying beans and like really technical stuff that is kind of boring if you're not interested in coffee, and can get a little bit repetitive because there's just not that much to talk about coffee-wise for how many books there are. So I would just recommend skipping past that stuff if you find it boring, because the stories and the mysteries themselves are actually really good. Another series is an old series that I've sort of gotten into due to nostalgia, and that is the Fear Street series by R.L. Stine. I've been buying these R.L. Stine books at the thrift store. You can usually find them for like 50 cents to $2 each. I love the cover art. This is my favorite one for some reason. I think she's wearing like a hoodie and cutoffs, which is one of my favorite uniforms. So I've been collecting all the R.L. Stines, not just Fear Street, but his Super Chillers, his different special series that he's done. My sister used to read these when I was a kid. She's a bit older than me. They came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and she had a bunch, so I am obsessed with them. And they're really, really fast reads, like in a day, one sitting, you can read one of these. And they're basically young adult horror mystery books. And then another author that's famous for those types of books is Christopher Pike. The reason why I want to mention him is his books are a little bit more in depth. And I know that he has a re-release of Chain Letter at the bookstore right now. And I think it's both of them together because it's a lot bigger of a book. So Chain Letter 1 and Chain Letter 2. This style of book is not in print anymore. So I definitely would recommend them, especially to my younger viewers. They're really, really fun. Even though this take place in the early 90s and can be a little bit, certain things are a bit dated. You know, the 90s are in again, so it's kind of cool. It's retro. Mystery author that a viewer actually turned me on to is James Lee Burke, and he writes the Dave Robichaux mystery series, or I guess it's more of a crime series. He's a detective from New Orleans, and the first book I read of his was Black Cherry Blues, which is his most famous kind of like put him on the map book. It actually takes place a little bit in Louisiana, and then a lot of it I think takes place in Montana. And the first book of the series is Neon Rain, which is when he's still a cop in New Orleans. He actually leaves the police force in New Orleans by the time this book comes. I haven't read the rest of the series, so I don't know if he ends up going back. But it's basically about this cop do kind of anything he needs to do to get the truth, to get justice, and he deals with really seedy people, like the underbelly of civilization, dirty cops, mobsters, drug dealers, pimps, really dark content. This is one thing that does kind of put me off the series, is it's really dark. And every time I go to read one of his books, I'm like, I don't really want to go there. I don't really want to read this right now because it's just so heavy. But the way James Lee Burke writes is so beautiful and lyrical and visual that once you start reading, you just get totally sucked into the world and you don't want to put it down. So I'll leave this on my nightstand for like 2 or 3 days and not want to pick it up, and then once I pick it up I'm reading 3 or 4 hours straight because I can't put it down. It's just so well written, although I do think it's skewed for a male reader. Like, if you like the show Justified and that kind of like Western John Wayne, you know, John McClane, I'll break all the rules kind of cop stories, you'll probably really like this series. And it does beautifully depict the Louisiana landscape. Lastly, let's go to Supernatural, because that's always my favorite. And I've been in love with this series by Patricia Briggs. It's the Mercy Thompson series. This is Moon Called, the first novel in the series. And I've read one of her books before. I read Masks, which was her first novel. I didn't really love it. I know this is her most famous series, so I thought I'd give it a go. And I started reading it in May. And I zipped through this so quickly. I absolutely fell in love with Mercy. She is a shapeshifter coyote who is half Native American. That's where her shapeshifting comes from. And she's also a mechanic, and she was raised by a pack of werewolves, but not just any pack, the like head pack with the Merrick brand, who's like the head of all the werewolves. So she has all this pedigree, and she knows all about the supernatural world, even though what she is really rare. And she has a friend who's a vampire. Her boss at her mechanic shop is a fae, even though she's taken over for him. And it's just really interesting. There's like a lot of lore in it. There's a lot of stuff in it that is fresh and new, like Patricia's take on everything, which I really like. And Mercy's just such a badass. Like, if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you like any strong female you know, characters, if you like Sookie Stackhouse, you will really love this series. I highly, highly recommend it. I know it's very popular, so you might have already heard of it, but I fell in love with Mercy. This one is about werewolves, and it's like the introduction to Mercy's world. The second book is more based on the vampires. And then the third book, which is my favorite, Iron Kissed, is based on the Fae. This one is really dark at the end. Something bad happens to Mercy, and it's so emotional, but I think she writes it so well. Like, she just really does it justice, and it's such an exciting and really heartfelt and powerful book. I loved it. And when you read series, a lot of the times it's about the characters that you fall in love with and want to like return to. It's about the fun, relaxed read, sort of like watching your favorite TV show. But every once in a while you come across a series that's like an HBO show or an AMC show, like a real quality, amazing series. This is one of those. This is like, you know, the Breaking Bad of book series. I'm currently reading Silverborn, which is the 5th one, and I'm really liking it. Patricia Briggs also writes a spin-off to the Mercy Thompson book series, and it is called Alpha Omega, and Crywolf is the first standalone book from it, and it takes place in, again, the Merrick's pack with his other son, Charles. So his one son, Samuel, is in these books, and then he has another son named Charles who is with this lady in this series. I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my to-read list. I'm really, really excited about it. Before I leave you all, I'm going to talk about one last series that I am dying to read. So I fell in love with Dark Angel when it was on back in like 1999, and I just rewatched it all on DVD, and I loved it. It was very like 90s, but in all the best ways, and I love Jessica Alba. I think she's just one of the most stunning, funny, cool chicks out there. And my love, Jensen Ackles, who I love from Supernatural, is also a regular in season 2. He's also in season 1, but only briefly. So I just fell in love with the series. And there is a book series that goes along with it, which I didn't know about, but I bought on Amazon. And basically, there's 3 books. One is about before the show, one is about during the show, and then one of them is about after the show. So you can find out what happens, because it does end on a cliffhanger, because the show got canceled. So yeah, it got canceled. It's not like the greatest thing of television, but I loved it. Just like Roswell, which I also just rewatched. So good, even though season 3 is not that great, but the rest of it's so good. It's worth a watch, and I hope that these books live up to the show. I haven't read them yet, but I will let you know how that goes. Alright guys, I'm going to go before my camera ends, and I run out of filming time because I've filmed this twice already and done that. But I hope you like this book review, and I will be doing another one soon with some of the standalone books that I've loved over the last little while. So look out for that, and leave any questions or comments below, and thumbs up this video if you like it, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Alright guys, see you soon. Bye!